Hey, this is the Tuesday edition of the Husker247 Daily. Second time we've done this. Brian Christopherson over there. I'm Michael Bruntz. Let's get into three topics here, Brian. About 10 o'clock last night, the social media post dropped. Nebraska has handed out the Blackshirts. 10 Blackshirts handed out last night. What do you kind of make of the group? And kind of going off of what John Butler said yesterday, there's at least the chance that that group fluctuates a little bit as the season goes along.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the group. I guess if you were to say who didn't get one that you thought might have, is like Keona Davis, right? He didn't get one. It's so Van Poppel's a guy who's working for one still. I think the guy who is going to have the biggest impact on Thursday that didn't get one, if I were to call my shot, is going to be Jordan Ochoa. I think he will make some plays in the pass rush game. He's had a great offseason. And so that's my pick to click as far as black shirts who were not recognized in black. But I do like that they're keeping it to 10, 11, or 12 because I think otherwise it just becomes this convoluted mess around here where there becomes a storyline in October that Bo Pelini always had to deal with. And people are like, do we, the joke was the old Schick and Nick joke. Do we send the robot in sort of thing to ask the question? And I'm glad we're past that. Let's just, whoever's basically starting, put them in black. And if you if you're second string the next week, if Elijah Judy gets passed up by RVP next week, you change out jerseys and it keeps things really competitive because you want to wear that out there.
Yeah, and you don't want the situation with that also popped up in that era where you were taking them back, right? Like that was always the weird one to me. It was like, okay, you waited and you waited and you waited, you gave them, and now bad game, we need them back. We're gonna need those back now.
Yeah. So I'm glad they're avoiding that. Yes.
So you said Ochoa. This is getting into our second topic. You kind of jumped the gun a little bit.
I'm sorry. I'm a rookie at this.
No, that's fine. We're all feeling our way out here. Aside from Ochoa, which guy by like week 3 would you say on that defense is like, okay, this is a potential Blackshirts addition to the list? By the time we get to
Williams,
by the time Michigan's rolling into town, who also has a black shirt that doesn't have one now?
I mean, wouldn't it be fascinating? And I'll just say it is if Williams Nwaneri is that guy. Like the fact that he wasn't in black with the initial crew, but he is top of the depth chart, at least as a number 1 with Lenhart. And that tells you he had a really good offseason because I would not have necessarily predicted that before this all began. So even though I jumped the gun and I said Ochoa for Thursday, I'm glad you're reframing it here because I think Williams Nwaneri is like the most fascinating of the crew. Like who could be one? Shavers wasn't in one, was he?
He was not. I was going to ask about him.
What do you think about that?
I mean, he's an interesting case because John Butler was very clear that it's going to be starters. It's not going to be guys who are, kind of rotational starters. But I mean, I think he was the guy I was thinking of besides Riley Van Poppel that I could see getting one fairly easily or early on, just based on play. And I think maybe it even kind of bodes well a little bit at that linebacker spot that you've got, the two guys on the interior that have black shirts, and one of them is not Vincent Shavers. Like that to me speaks to a pretty solid 3-man rotation at that spot, which I think is kind of what Nebraska ideally wants numbers wise. Maybe somebody can kind of press the issue and become the fourth person in that rotation. But after the initial kind of surprise that Shavers didn't have one, I thought, okay, that's kind of a good sign, I think, for what they've got there. And I guess you've got, Watson Trent and you've got Javen Wright, with 13 years experience between the two of them. That's a good place to start the season right there.
Two things. First off, for this opener with Vincent Shavers, and the Tuesday update is going to give this out, but he has dealt with a hamstring issue a little bit, like a strain, and that was brought up by Rule. So that's something to kind of just, I guess, monitor. So that could play a part in it. I do think also, though, to your point, it is good. Like, it shows you watching Trent, who was like a pro's pro up at the podium. I mean, that was impressive watching him. He just like looked like he belonged there. I think it's a good thing that he's sort of who they thought he was, that he's where he is right now. And if I were to throw one more name that got a black shirt, it's Elijah Judy ahead of Van Poppel on the depth chart. And I think Bruntz, so often in college football, if you want to be an elite program, you have to have those stories of a guy who has sort of grinded through his college career. People think they know what he's about, sort of, but they don't. Like, his final year, he shows that there's actually another level, and he puts it out there. And those happen all the time, but you need them pretty consistently every year from somebody. And Elijah Judy would be like, if you were to do a pick to click on that, like, who's your guy? Like, last go, just takes it to the place you're like, I didn't see that coming a year or two ago. Maybe he's that guy. And the fact that he won the top job and is ahead of RVP, I don't view it as a bad thing necessarily, because obviously teammates really respect Van Poppel and all that. So he's putting in the work, but it shows you Judy has too.
Yeah, it's interesting with him, especially because, I mean, it's been several weeks that he's been first on the depth chart there. I mean, during the open practice, he was the first guy out of the chute at that interior position, ahead of Van Poppel. So it's not like I mean, it's a kind of a sudden, slow burn type storyline from his entire time here. But this fall, I mean, he's been consistently in that top group, and I think that's why you didn't see the or on the depth chart when the first one came out there.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a bit of a luxury too. I mean, if you've got a little bit more depth and then in the interior defensive line than you thought you had, that's a good place to start the season. Into our third topic, which also talking about luxuries, Dana Holgorsen's comments yesterday about the offensive tackle spot, which sounds like it's going to be a game time decision, could be could even see a rotation at those spots. What did you kind of make of his comments yesterday, and kind of what that means for Nebraska's offense going into this opener?
Yeah, I do think it's a luxury. I know what he's saying there. Like, I know there's some thought, like, if it's sort of like the old QB thing, if you have two, you have none, sort of deal. So there might be some who's saying, well, if how come you can't decide on someone? But at this point, maybe they have. I'm sure they have, and it's just sort of playing out publicly, like, we will rotate guys, but I would guess they have a plan about who's going to go out there first. And I don't view it as a bad thing that Gunnar Gatula, who came in last year to a tough spot, went from third string to first string in the matter of like a month, and performed well enough at left tackle that we were not talking each week about, like, oh, they got to cover up for their left tackle, this young guy, he can't hang. He did pretty well. And so, honestly, the more I've thought about it, it's like sort of, it's not surprising to me, because I know Elijah Pritchett, there's a big financial, outpouring you put into him. So there's sort of something you want out of that. He's got great talent, but when you think about what some of those other tackles have done and how much football they've played, should it really shock us that there's like 4 or 5 guys like right there with a guy who has first round, probably second round type talent, but is still trying to build on those small details it takes to get there? And I think it can be a motivating factor for Pritchett too that's useful. So we'll see who they trot out first. I don't have a problem if you have a couple bad drives or it looks like someone isn't up for it, if you switch them out. Like, that's fine. And I think if it goes well, you just kind of keep rolling, and hopefully, you get a lead, and maybe you could put another guy in for a couple series. It is an interesting situation, though. We haven't talked about this in a long time with Husker football and O-line, where actually more than 5 guys could play and they could rotate. It just hasn't been a thing.
Yeah, no, it's like, look at all this depth all of a sudden. Look at us. Got all this
Look at
depth.
us. Hey, look at us. We made it to the opener.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Paul Rudd style.
All right. That's your Husker247 Daily for Tuesday, August 26th. We'll hear from Matt Rule today in a couple hours. Kind of put a bow on game prep week, and then off to Kansas City for the opener against Cincinnati. Keep it locked on Husker 24/7 for all the updates from that leading into the season opener with the Bearcats.